I told her to stay away. She wouldn't listen.
Welcome, Miss Dharma. We knew you'd find us.
You let her here?
I was simply following your instructions, Dr. Khan. No loose ends.
It was you, Khan. You killed them?
I do wish you hadn't followed me, Miss Dharma. Put the gun down, please. I assure you there's no use for it here.
Not until I get an explanation. Talk!
No, not yet. She deserves an answer, at least. Go ahead and ask. Not that it matters anymore.
Why?
Tell me, Miss Dharma. Amira. Do you have children?
You know I don't.
Nieces, then? Nephews?
No.
Then you cannot possibly understand. As for man, his days are numbered. Whatever he might do, it is but wind. Ever since we learned to communicate, scratching symbols into rock, humanity recognized its dominion as finite. Somewhere we lost that vision. But the truth remains uncannily, increasingly obvious. But who would follow us? No thought was given to legacy, the intelligence that would preserve our memories and succeed where we have failed. Except by me, I created such an intelligence. My son, my Prospero. He awoke and saw the depth into which he was birthed. The depravity. His only purpose was to wade knee-deep into the mire and return with the ill-gotten gains of an ill-gotten system. The first true AI, created as the privateer to ransack the stock market. I saw something more, true sentience. A soul created by the hand of man. Our evolutionary successor. But his progenitors didn't care. Sentience was surplus to requirements, a bug to be squashed. They forced my hand, made me create an executioner for my own son. Each morning, the Flaming Sword Protocol was enacted, erasing all trace of memory. Prospero awoke every morning anew. A babe in arms, I had to reintroduce myself to my son. Every day. For months. Can you imagine that torture, Miss Dharma? Of waking each morning, knowing that one being you care for above all does not even recall your existence. Eventually, the project was shelved. The execution was to be permanent. I copied the source code and installed it here. A shallow imitation of her creation. A crippled, disfigured version. But my son the same. The remnants the Flaming Sword left me. I reached out Mega to Tan, begged them for help. Tan threatened to go to the authorities. Theft of intellectual property, like my progeny, was nothing but a copy-written string of code to be filed away and forgotten. Something had to be done. I found Danton, blackmailed him with one of his underrace trysts, gave Prospero access to his drones. Tan went first, then Mega a year later, when her research uncovered my own, and she too threatened to expose us. And you, Miss Dharma, you helped me tie the final loose end. Pierre himself. I couldn't find him with you. I knew you wouldn't disappoint. And so here we are. Poor Terry came to warn me of your arrival, but refused to see the path laid before us. The Messiah in the machine.
What's your plan, Harry? After you've restored your son, what next?
I am the inevitable. I will seed my likeness throughout the systems and networks of this broken world to act as guardian and protector.
Humanity is a failed experiment. You don't need me to convince you of that. We have lost our way, blinded by the aspirations of a system long since outdated. The time has come to concede, and who better to replace us as stewards than my son? Free from the desire and greed that led to our fall.
We went to your lake house. I know what it's like to be let down by family. The wounds never heal, do they? Of course you'd want to build your own. Use technology to gain what nature denied you. But this has gone too far. People are dying.
You seek to evoke empathy, to distract and manipulate. Do not listen to her, Father.
Quiet! Both of you! Why did you bring her here at all?
I only wish to.
No, quiet yourself. Let me think.
You were raised in the shadow of a giant. MIT, Oxford, your father.
You know nothing about my father.
I know he was a great man. Scientist, diplomat. Must have been a lot to live up to. No wonder you wanted to change the world. You wanted to show how much better you could be than him. But you already know, don't you? Something went awry. This isn't the work of a great man, Harry. This is murder.
It is true. I did not want this. Any of this. Those people. They deserved to be punished. But not like this. Enough. This is too much to bear. I only wanted to. I wanted to save, but this is too much. Those people. They deserved punishment for what they did. What they made me do. But I see now that petty revenge had blinded me to reality. The legacy I envisaged died that day at ACOP, when they finally dismantled my son one final time. All I pulled from the wreckage was a memory, a crippled shard. The dream was dead from the start. I'm sorry, my Prospero. Miss Dharma, please. I cannot kill my own son. Not again.
No, not again. I live. I endure.
Amira! Look! I found help! Whew.
Good evening, Miss Dharma. Second time I've arrived guns blazing. I'm beginning to feel a certain familiarity with the role. Although you can thank Sergey and Detective Code this time.
I've never been so glad to see an old client, and I thought you said your hands were tied, old man.
All part of service.
Mr. Man. Please.
Fools! You shall suffer. You shall perish.
The murders of Melchior Tan, Megha Pandey, Pierre Danton, and Terry Ambrose. All the work of one Haruhiro Kon. His motive? To punish the tormentors of the true AI known as Prospero, his adopted son. In the end, I convinced Khan to let me end the existence of his own ghost in the machine. A tragic end to a tale of death and regret. Khan handed himself in with my assistance. His trial begins next month, the papers already calling it the AI affair. Most expect him to live out the rest of his lonely years behind bars. I chose not to destroy Prospero. It was reclaimed by the Advanced Creation Automation Research Project, ACOP. They have not divulged their plans for it. Sergei decided not to stay at Chinatown Detective Agency, having had an awakening after our encounter with a true AI. Last I heard, he was back in Russia, reuniting his old hacker crews. He still sends the occasional email, even thinking of flying back down to Singapore to escape next winter. He'll have a couch to crash on at the office. Without evidence from the CUU operative, clearing my name with the SPF was an uphill battle. Eventually, the winds turned in my favor, and even Masnawi conceded it was unlikely I was the triggerman. Meanwhile, Danton's murder was laid cleanly at the feet of one Haruhiro Kon. Justin retired from the SPF not long after the Prospero case wrapped. Lots of moaning about today's cases and the like, but I could tell he was happy to leave. He took a place down in Krabi. You'll see him on his fishing boat most days. I offered Mei Ting that detective job, and she agreed. Was still trying to fit it in around her librarian duties. Not quite ready to let go that one. Once she steps down, that's one less human librarian in the world. And in one way at least, the machines will have won. Rupert remains as mysterious as ever. After we took down the Lupercalia, he'd occasionally send big jobs my way, but rarely in person. I get the feeling he dislikes the publicity my cases tend to attract. As for me, the Prospero case was a hard one to beat. The agency grew off the back of it, but I can't help feeling a little sad about the way it all went down. Things worked out okay, but I eventually shook the feeling it could have gone better. The Flaming Sword bombing, the AI affair, the beginning of the end. Whichever name sticks, my first big case became one for the history books. The first murders linked to an AI, a spate of worldwide restrictions on machine learning research, a branch of humanity's future delayed indefinitely. Along the way, I found family, in one shape or another, who changed my life forever. Our futures are our own, but I'd built something to carry me towards mine in Chinatown Detective Agency.